Welcome back from our break. We are concluding our first day of the Stretch Conference with a speech from Alex KUDELKA. Alex has spent the last 12 plus years in early and growth phase startups, predominantly in SaaS. Before Bitrise, he spent his time scaling revenue at Doodle while they made their breakout into B2B. Today, he will talk about scaling your revenue organization. Alex, the stage is yours.
Awesome. Thank you. So pleasure to be here and presenting. I wish it was in person. I definitely miss giving talks in person, but hopefully that'll be next year's Stretch conference. As you've all read and are joining here, we're going to talk about scaling revenue organizations, what matters and what doesn't. We say what doesn't. I think every single business is going to be different. Every single stage is different. So I'm going to talk more about what may matter less at any given stage that you may be facing. This is Back to the Future, the musical. That's the background image. And for some reason, we've been using this for different talks at Bitrise, and I think it's ironic to use it during this one. So I think it's fun. But please feel free to joke about that in the future. So we're going to talk about a few things, the growth stages of a startup. I'm sure a lot of people who are attending this are in a startup or a scale up or in some way, shape or form experiencing that growth of a business. If not, it's still a similar approach, regardless of what stage of a company you may be in. The journey of building your sales organization and common mistakes along the way. Few disclaimers. I'm not a designer. So these slides are absolutely terrible. There's going to be misalignments. Colors aren't going to make sense. But please hold back your laughter. I may or may not curse. I have a potty mouth. There are many ways to grow. I'm only going to share experiences that I'm familiar with. I'm not somebody who pushes methodologies onto anyone else because I do believe every single business is different and circumstances are different, products are different. And so this is sharing experience and trying to lend light on what I think is going to matter most as you grow. So I'm going to ask you to ask questions, laugh, cry, whatever emotion occurs during this. Please feel free to experience it. Building revenue organizations, building a business is really hard. And so you got to have some fun while doing it. So let's talk about the stages of growth. Let's talk about the stages of building a startup or a business. My favorite concept to use, which is quite out of the box, it's the hockey stick model, the 4 stages of hockey stick growth. And those are tinkering, blade years, growth inflection, and surging growth, or hyper growth, as some people refer to it. These all are respective of challenges. I think the biggest thing to remember is that it doesn't get easier. So just because you move from the blade years into the growth inflection years doesn't mean that it gets easier. It's just going to be a presentation of different problems that you have to go through. You just get better at handling these things. I think that's one of the things that I want everybody to walk away with at any given time. It's the fact that don't put yourself in the mindset that getting from one stage to the next is going to make everybody's lives easier. That's not the case. It's everybody just gets a little bit better every day. Everybody gets a little bit more aware of what's going on and how the business works to be able to make decisions faster and be able to make more relevant decisions. So overall, you just get better at handling the growth and the problems that come along with it. We're going to focus mainly on the blade years into the growth inflection point in the early days of surging growth. The reason we're going to focus on these is this is what I have the most experience in. So I'm not going to speak about stages of a business that I don't have experience in or little experience in. I want to focus on what I can make most impactful for everyone. So the journey of building your first sales or revenue organization. This is alluding to what I mentioned earlier. You're often going to feel like shit. It's a part of the job. There are hundreds of fires going on at any given time, and you need to be thinking about what are most important. The acronyms or the old adages that people use, all right, it's building a bike while riding it, it's building a rocket while flying it. It's totally normal. You're just needing to figure it out and how to deal with that pressure and how to deal with just the day-to-day in your own way. And pushing that down doesn't help, but being open and honest with your team and being open and honest with your problems is super important. So if you're experiencing whatever it may be, just stress from the different growth stages, of whether you're experiencing imposter syndrome, which a lot of people go through in some way, shape, or form, it's fine. Everyone goes through it, and it's important to accept that can happen. We're going to start with those early days, right? So the late blade years, we're going to start talking about you've earned some revenue, and you're looking to make the decision around building your first sales organization, right? So revenue may be coming in, whether it's self-serve or as a founder or an early team, you've gone out and sold these deals. But you got PMF and you've been able to bring in revenue into the business. And it's always going to be the first question that comes up when building a revenue model. It's, A, are we going to have a sales organization? Are we going to have a sales driven process? And B, when do we actually hire those first salespeople? And so the questions that I always ask when I'm consulted on when should that happen, first question is, do you have your first legitimately large set of revenue coming into the business, right? Do you have your first real traction of revenue coming into the business? Which tends to happen for some businesses, depending on your deal size, 500K, for others, $1 million. But tends to still be below that first million. And I speak in ARR, so it tends to be under that first 1 million ARR. Do you grasp the value prop and have you sold it yourself? So whether you're a founder, you're a growth leader, maybe you are the first sales rep that was hired in the early days, are you able to grasp the product, the value prop, and have you sold it yourself? Is this product succeeding in production, right? So you may have revenue, but is your NPS poor? Are you having a significant amount of churn, right? Are customers leaving left and right? Just because you're selling doesn't mean that those customers are actually successful. And just selling more isn't going to help anyone, right? You're just going to keep hitting that churn. Your churn's just going to keep going up. And so making sure that you actually have a healthy business in place before you hire that first sales team is really important. And last but not least, can you actually train that sales organization? Just hiring salespeople and sitting them on the floor doesn't help anyone. Salespeople need that mentorship. They need that guidance. They need that product knowledge, and they need to learn a sales model in order to repeat it, right? We're looking to make a repeatable model. So then it would be time if you can answer yes to all those questions. If you cannot, there's a strong argument to hold off. If you're not able to prove product market fit, your sales organization is not responsible to get PMF. It's very expensive to have a sales organization. You're going to need to focus on a repeatable sales process. You're going to need to focus on large customers who often obviously hit your growth rates, the most impactful to your growth rate, but also most impactful to your churn. So if you don't have PMF, or you have a very poor retention, NRR is really the secret to SaaS, net retention rate. It is not worth investing into a meaningful sales organization yet. So I would hold off in these cases where you're not able to answer yes, or you're not confident in how you would be able to get around one of these topics. The other thing that I would focus on, if you did answer yes and and you're in this stage and you're able to move forward, there's a lot of text on this slide, so good luck trying to read it while listening. You need to be thinking about the ideal profile of that sales organization. And why this is so important, you're going to speak to a lot of great salespeople when you're hiring, because they're salespeople. And that's fantastic. But it doesn't mean that they're necessarily right for your business. And so you need to define the profile of a hire as soon as humanly possible, so that you can use that as a guide or a template when you're interviewing salespeople. Or else you're going to have a lot of salespeople go through the process, interview, do a great presentation. You're going to hire them, and oftentimes it's not going to work out because you didn't look for the key factors into setting up someone for success. And what that looks like are those principles on the right side, right? The ideal profile of a sales rep. They have to be collaborative, right? Especially in the early days. You're going to have people learn a lot, experience a lot. They need to be able to reciprocate that back to the business and back to the sales organization. So everybody's learning as much as possible. Builder mindset is critical. A lot of salespeople are used to larger organizations where processes are put in place, content is there. You're going to need people, especially in the early days, who are going to want to create, right? They're going to want to co-create with you. They're going to want to co-create with growth or with marketing. Third, arguably the second most important out of all of these, segment experience. Do not go hire that big fancy sales rep from Salesforce who's closed $250,000 deals if your average deal size is $5,000 and takes 2 weeks to close. Those are two very different sales processes. And oftentimes you cannot match up those skill sets because it had been years since that salesperson has closed customers like that. So you need to make sure that you understand the type of segments that you're selling to, and match that to the experience of the salesperson that you're hiring. This is the biggest mistake that I see any sales organization make when hiring. And last but not least, sales culture and values. And I'm not talking about company values. I'm actually talking about what are the sales values, right? So one of ours at BitRise, integrity. Don't sell shit to people that they don't need, right? So we're not going to sell something just so we can grow another. Want to make sure that we're hiring people who have a high amount of integrity, who are going to sell the right thing to the right person at the right time. So you need to sit down and think about what is the type of sales organization that I want to have, and what is the type of sales culture and values that I'd like to have. The other three things that are important: compensation package. At the end of the day, salespeople are here to sell, and oftentimes are money motivated, which is fantastic. That's absolutely the way it should be. You need to make sure that it's clear and simple on how those people make money, how those people sell those deals, and what in return they're actually getting. So always err on the side of simplicity with your compensation package. And don't be afraid in the early days, if your margin allows it, to pay out heavily to impact that growth rate. Always have an assignment. This is the real litmus test to their ability to be successful in your business. Create an assignment, have them build a territory plan, have them do a mock call, whatever it may be. But the assignment is where you're really going to be able to tell, is this candidate going to be successful selling or working in the sales organization or revenue organization at my business. Last but not least, go fishing. Your recruitment team is not responsible for driving 100% of the candidates and hires into your business. They're there to help facilitate. You are their partner. You're their business partner. Go speak to candidates. Go outbound candidates. If you're a VP of sales, go outbound candidates. I spend a portion of my time every single week on LinkedIn outbounding candidates to bring great people into BitRise. Everyone should be doing that, or else you're going to find yourself well behind the ball and being prepared with the amount of sales reps that you need to have to be successful. So you've built that initial stage, you've hired that first team. So now we're above $1 million in recurring revenue. You're most likely a VP of sales, right? This is no longer being done by an early sales team with the founder or a sales manager. And we're looking on tweaking that engine and getting it ready for hyper growth. So here's where you really need to start caring about models, and you really need to start caring about building a strong foundation, but not over engineering it, right? So we embrace at Bitrise, and I've done this at other organizations as well, the pod model, right? So pick the regions that you're going to be present in, like the Americas or EMEA or APAC, and embrace the fact that you need to have different pods of people around the world if you're a global sales organization. And so on the left side of this screen, you'll see up to about 10 million in ARR. You can have global pods. You can have a closing organization that is managed from one place, where all the best practices are coming together. But there's going to be so much noise and so many people that at some point, that's going to need to break up. Not only that, regionality takes a hold, right? The way things are done in EMEA versus the US are very different. And so localizing for regionality, like language, or localizing for regionality when it comes to specifics into selling into that region, like legal or procurement needs, it's a perfect time once you've hit 10 million and above. Once your sales organization is probably around 30 people, to break up into those regional pods, right? Having an EMEA closing team and an Americas closing team. But what you'll notice is keeping global pods wherever you can. So sales engineering or sales development and sales operations. What you see with this model is that you can have regional pods that are specific to the region and tactics to the region. But in the organizations like sales engineering or sales development, where the best practices are pretty much the same everywhere, you can get away much longer with having global organizations. The other reason that this is incredibly important, the second you go full pod, full vertical in any given region, you start to create its own culture, its own environment. And you want to try to hold off on that as long as you can, so that you can get institutional knowledge and cultural experience into those pods before they completely break off and become totally vertical, so that you can have people who live and breathe those sales values and cultures, and that institutional knowledge from techniques can live in all of those different regional pods, if and when the day comes that you need full pods vertically in all of those different regions. What not to lose sleep on at this stage, right? Once you've gotten to 1 million and you're growing to 10, enablement, right? And this is definitely going to irk people, or at least some people. Joining at this stage, sales reps should not expect that you're going to make them the greatest sales rep on the planet, right? They should understand that they're coming into an organization where they're going to learn on the job. You as a sales manager or a sales leader, you are there to help facilitate their growth, get them what they need, coach them wherever you can, make them better. They will learn from osmosis. They will learn from doing. Those are the types of people that you need. Hire great people and get the hell out of the way. That's the best thing that you can possibly do. Enable them, help them, ensure that they know how to ask for help. But enablement and overthinking enablement in the early days will not be helpful, because it's going to change, right? The way you sell is going to change. Your product is going to change. You need to learn as much as you can from as many reps as you can before you formalize enablement. And for example, at Bitrise, we're doing this at the moment. And it's the right time to do it, because we have enough institutional knowledge and experience to build it correctly so that it'll scale to 100 million ARR and beyond. Operationalizing. You're going to want to build a process around everything at this stage, because there's going to be a fire, or something's not going to make sense, or it's going to feel wonky, or you're going to have weird tools, whatever it may be. You cannot build a process around everything at the same time. You need to pick and choose, how are you going to build foundationally the process of our revenue organization, and piece by piece, org by org, discipline by discipline, will you start to operationalize. I'll give a prime example of this. When you start building outbound in your sales organization, if you operationalize it too soon, you're going to potentially cut fostering learning and curiosity, And you're not going to allow for that agility to learn as much as you can before operationalizing the process and then going to train the rest of the organization. So don't overthink having to operationalize everything too soon. What you may want to lose sleep on, your people. It will happen overnight that you as a revenue leader or a founder or whomever you are, that you become 2 degrees separated from your team, especially those that have been there a long time. Don't allow it to happen to the best of your abilities, for many reasons, right? Enabling those people, but also from retention, right? You want to make sure that your best people, those who are going to impact the org for years to come, know how to work with you or with other leaders at different stages of the business, at different inflection points. So make sure you hold yourself accountable constantly to working with ICs if you're an LC, so that you don't lose sight of what's going on the day-to-day, because it can easily happen overnight, right? End of year planning, getting ready for the next big year of growth, you can easily detach. Don't allow that to happen, because it not only creates a poor environment, stifles growth, especially of that person or those people, but you may be doing the wrong things because you're not listening to the ground. And that's a problem. Last but not least, why you lose and why you win. If your growth rate is great, why is it great? Why are you winning? Why are you winning so much? You could be winning too much, right? Your win rate could be so high that the reason it's high is you're not in enough deals, right? That means you're potentially not creating enough opportunities and pushing the envelope on how many deals can you actually close in any given period of time. And most importantly, why are you losing? Making sure you know which use cases, verticals, industries, whatever it may be, that you shouldn't be in, or that you should have a yellow flag on the second that they come into the pipeline if they don't match the value drivers that your product provides. And last but not least, this next stage, we're around 10 million, could be 10 million plus in ARR. Your organization or your revenue or sales organization probably is about 40 people at this point. And you're about to hit that hyper growth stage. So that's those early surging days. This is a really fun moment, because once you get to this point, it's inevitable that you're going to be successful. Very few things, if anything, will make the business not be successful. And it's kind of going to happen overnight. There are going to be months before that you're going to feel exhausted, that you're going to feel like things are just hard, unnecessarily hard. But one day you're going to wake up and you're going to like say to yourself, wait, this is actually working. This is pretty brilliant. And we've gone from point A to M at this point. And you're saying to yourself, wow, I can't even believe that we got here, but it's working. And you can waterfall your way back and understand why it's working, right? You can follow an opportunity. You can see that your sales cycles are healthy. You can see that your funnel conversion rate is healthy. You can see that your average deal size is growing. These are all indicators that it's working and that it's time to fuel that fire, right? So if your net retention is constantly increasing, right? If you're putting $1 in and 6 months later getting 50 cents from that dollar and it's now $1.50, chances are it's working, right? If your win rate is strong, above 45%, chances are it's working. Right? If your average deal size is going up, chances are it's working. If your lead funnel is either staying strong or even growing because you're getting into new markets or you're selling new products, it can be working. And you don't want to wait too long to press on the gas to take advantage of that growth, because chances are your competitors are thinking about the same thing and they're waiting for that aha moment that it's working, and you don't want them to step on the gas before you. Biggest thing, but my biggest advice at this stage, take a step back and start thinking about the organizational structure, organizational health. One of the easiest things that you can do to enhance growth, double down on the markets where you don't have enough where you don't have enough focus, right? So for example, if you've grown your sales organization in the Americas and in EMEA, but you have a strong lead flow in APAC, but you haven't been selling in APAC, go build a pod in APAC and go sell in APAC and see, can I validate that this market is going to be successful, right? Toss a field marketer in there, toss an AE, toss a sales engineer, and see, can they improve the average deal size in that region? Can we have healthy sales KPIs like win rates? Can we hire good people there? If so, and you can validate that after 6 to 9 months, double down, build a vertical pod, try to connect it globally, because you do not want to silo off a whole organization, especially a new one in a new territory. But this is always a healthy trick. And now more than ever, it's possible, right? With remote work, you can use companies like remote.com or Safeguard to easily hire people wherever they are in the world and spin up a pod in the matter of a few weeks. This is a nice way to quickly take advantage of growth. And then you can start making those decisions. Okay, well, we're going to have a regional pod here, a regional pod here, a regional pod here. You start becoming methodical about how you're assigning revenue goals to those different pods based on your TAM, based on the growth rates of those different regions. And you really start to mechanize that plan on how you're going to get from 10 to 20 or 20 to 50 or 50 to 100, whatever it may be. But start thinking about that early. All right, you might feel like you're overthinking it, but you're not. Always think about the 50-50 rule. There's a little asterisk here because it can be different everywhere. But grow the people who have been there at your business for years and give them the shot at building something new, right? This could be a promotion. This could be building out a new discipline or a new team within your organization. But people with institutional knowledge of how to get shit done at your business are arguably the most powerful people you'll ever work with, because they know how the business operates, right? Whether there's a political environment or not, or whether there's institutional knowledge about how things have been done in the past, or product limitations or revenue limitations, whatever it may be, that knowledge allows their ramp to be much smaller than hiring somebody from outside of the business. You hire people from outside of the business for skill gaps that you have, and try to balance between external hires and internal promotions. This is my favorite. Once you realize that you're at this stage, you're probably already behind for the upcoming year or the upcoming period. And so you need to start scaling and hiring as fast as possible, preferably yesterday. So the second you feel like you're at that moment, start building your plan for the next year, the next 2 years to come, because this compounds. All right, let's talk about some common mistakes as fast as we can. Hiring the wrong leader. So I love the SaaSer model. Jason Lemkin, some call him the godfather of SaaS, has a brilliant model when thinking about the different profiles of sales leaders. First one is the evangelist. They can start selling your product right away. They probably have been selling your product right away, and you gave them the first shot at being a leader. They're sharp, they're gritty, they can sell it to anybody. The chances are they have a ceiling. And that could be because they've never scaled teams before. That could be because they silo their learnings to the business and only the business, so they don't know how to grow and learn other models. There could be many reasons why this person cannot be successful, but it's often because they siloed themselves to learning about just that business. Mr. Make It Repeatable, arguably somebody that you should be highly considering hiring. This is who you want to bring in during that second phase of the business, where you've got a brand, you've made a repeatable sales process, you have PMF, you might have a few reps who are successful. This is somebody who has been at your stage and the next one, right? They know how to take what you have and get you to the next stage, and arguably has seen stages past that next stage as well. So they know how to live and breathe within the environment that you're in, but have an eye focused on the future. And that's my timer to make sure that we keep wrapping up. Last but not, or two more, miss go big is very important as well. They've done this before. They've done it potentially at 1 or 2 stages past. They have a blueprint. You need to heavily challenge on how they would take that blueprint and match it to your organization today and take you to the next, right? It could be that the stage that they were in were 2 or 3 stages above, right? Bringing somebody from somebody who was selling and building at 50 million ARR is very different at 1 million. So you need to be able to litmus test how they would bridge that gap. Last but not least, the one everybody cannot stand, Mr. Dashboards, hired from Salesforce or hired from Big Co A, who are going to come in, they know how to use Salesforce, but they're not going to learn your product, right? They're going to try to bring in processes that they've had before. And chances are they're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. My advice here, just don't waste your time. Always make sure that you're thinking about how to build a cohesive revenue model. If you have self-serve and direct sales, do not silo those teams off. Bring those teams together early on so that you have a unified revenue model. This is the classic PLG approach, right? Making sure that your funnel is not 2 different funnels, but somebody comes into the business and you decide, is this an ICP or a type of customer that should be sold to in a self-serve way, or do they need a sales touch? My biggest advice here again is do not allow these teams to be siloed, allow these teams to work together and make sure that you're building that unified customer lifecycle in one way. Always very important. Oftentimes, the revenue will start to shift heavily towards direct sales. That's because that's where the largest deal sizes are coming from. Don't forget about your long tail and those $50 and $100 customers who are coming in self-serve that are the ones who are shoring up your future expansion and talk about you in the community and grow your business. Like I said earlier, don't over-engineer for large organizations or pod models. Allow those to naturally grow. So I won't spend too much time on this. Make sure that as a leader, you're spending at least 50% of your time hiring at your growth phase, because there's going to be a point where you need to double your team within a very short period of time. If you can build your revenue leadership structure in a way to where you're focused heavily on hiring great people, that is the most impact you can have as a sales leader. That's the biggest impact you can have. Find great people, make sure you're spending your time evangelizing them and bringing them into the business and giving them the tools that they need to be successful. Some of the best sales leaders I know spend 50% of their time recruiting and hiring. So in closing, like I said at the beginning, this shit is hard. Show up every day. That's the most important thing. Allow yourself to be vulnerable to the weaknesses that occur within a growing business. Be vulnerable with your team, but show up for your team every day. And you're going to figure it out, especially once you hit that $10 million mark. You're certainly going to figure it out. That's it.
Thank you so much. I love it that you ended on the $10 million mark, because that should just be the light for every one of us. Thank you for that really amazing talk. We already have some questions for you, so let's jump right in. First of all, what would be a good way to handle the phase of hypergrowth as a human? How can leaders preserve humanly relationships, and is it necessary, I'm assuming?
Is it necessary? Yes, it's absolutely necessary. You're going to be spending the majority of your life with these people. They are your team. And in most cases, they can become your family. They can become your best friends. You could be standing on stage at somebody's wedding in a few years from now that you met at this business that you're working in. And so caring deeply about their not only their professional growth, but their personal growth is important. There are many ways you can do it. One very simple way, toss your one-on-one out the window someday and just go on a walking one-on-one, or just have a coffee one-on-one and just speak about what somebody's going through. Toss the pipeline review out the window. I promise you it'll be okay if you toss a pipeline review out the window, because your reps should be keeping decent enough hygiene. but allow the humanistic element to come into play, because we are all humans, and it makes this job significantly more valuable, and overall better if you allow yourself to do that. So you should care about it. You should make sure that you're setting up time to speak openly and in a human way to your team. Allow them to speak openly to you, and encourage them to do that by doing a walking one-on-one or coffee one-on-ones, by sharing yourself, right? Sharing the things you're going through as a leader with your team as well is very important, to show that the door is open for them to be able to do that as well. And the moment that you feel like there's something that you can help them with, take it serious. Do not just say, okay, you should try this, or you should try working on this. Build a plan with them and allow them to grow.
Thank you. Beautifully said. The next question is, how would you manage the slowdown of growth so that it doesn't feel like a failure, but as reaching maturity in the eyes of employees and investors?
Oh, wow. That's a good one. So when you fund with venture capital, there are aggressive growth rates. I'm incredibly transparent with my organization about what our goals are, right? So there are stretch goals and there are plan goals, and you build your revenue plan often on your stretch goal, right? What are we trying to do as a business? What boundaries are we trying to break? At what rate are we trying to grow? That we're trying to grow at the rate of the best companies in the world. But it doesn't mean that that is where we have to land. It means we plan to try to land there, right? The classic phrase of plan to try to land in the stars, you land on the moon, right? Shoot for the stars, you land on the moon. It's a very similar approach here. Plan in every way, shape, or form to try to exceed those aggressive goals, but be incredibly transparent with your team that they did not fail if they do not meet those goals. Because chances are you're still going to fall somewhere along the lines of companies who have done incredibly well and up to par with some of the leaders in the space. But there will also be times where you miss by a lot. And those are tough times. And chances are you can tie it back to things. So before you actually speak to your team and say, well, we missed, it's completely okay, retrospect, figure out why you missed, and have an open conversation with your organization about why you believe you missed. Because it's going to happen. There are going to be quarters you miss. There are going to be years that you miss. And just by saying it's okay doesn't help anyone. But learn why you believe it happened, and transparently speak with your organization about that.
Thank you. And you have a compliment in the end. You definitely shall be a fan of the Magnum TV series, am I right? Or you could be a relative to Tom Selleck.
Yes, that's what I'm aiming for.
I gave it to you because I am so glad it's not a female presenter who got that. And I think that just speaks to us all appreciating beauty in the world. With that said, we are out of questions for right now, but since we have you here, dearest audience, if you still have questions, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A. While I am presenting Alex with our speaker gift. Thank you so much for coming on the Stretch Conference today. We will be sending this to you. And there is another question. I am a people manager and a sales manager at the same time. It saves money. Do I need an individual sales manager at the stage of having 30 engineers? Should I make more money before hiring a sales?
Yeah, so there's two ways to answer this question, or there's two questions that somebody needs to ask themselves. Are you the best person for that job? Right, that's the first question you should be asking yourself. And if it's no, doesn't matter if you have the bandwidth. Somebody else could be filling that job for you, not only doing a better job, but planning for what needs to happen next and maximizing the growth that you currently have. So I would just be honest with myself first. am I actually adequately doing my job? Am I hurting my sales team or my engineering team by doing both? My personal perspective is you should try to bring somebody in the second that they can pay for themselves, right? In the early days, can that salesperson pay for themselves, or that leader, can they pay for themselves? If they can, take the risk. And be honest with that person, right? In the early days, if this is why I'm bringing you in, I believe that we can grow faster. I believe that we can grow more efficiently and healthier. We might be a bootstrap business, but we're making this decision to help us grow. So I think you just have to be really honest with yourself. And the second is, if you're more than 8-to-1, it's wrong. It's wrong for you, and it's wrong for the individual. It's wrong for the individual contributor. You are not, there's no way you are providing them with the guidance, the mentorship, the overall coaching that somebody needs in a greater pairing than 8-to-1. I've seen it done with a 10-to-1 pairing, 10 employees to one line manager. The second it starts hitting there, it starts getting very complicated and difficult. And you'll just be spreading yourselves too thin. So you're just doing a disservice to the individual and yourself as well. So that's the two ways that I would approach that topic.
Thank you so much. I believe we do not have any other questions. I'm taking another look. Thank you so much for this very down-to-earth presentation. I believe we learned a lot from you. And I hope we will see you for the rest of the conference.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for joining.